Yo, pull up a chair, let the real talk begin. Faith on the table where the brothers lock in. Life gets heavy, but we stand our ground. Truth in the room when the circle comes round. No mask, no front, just real man here. Talking about faith through the doubt and the fear. From the grind of the week to the lessons we share. Welcome to the men's round table, pull up a chair. Men's round table series, step inside. Real men, real faith where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the men's round table. Pull up a chair.
A lot of men are carrying battles that nobody talks about. They look successful and dependable and have everything under control, but inside they're exhausted trying to hold everything together by themselves. Today's guest knows that reality firsthand. He lost the life he built, faced addiction, and has real-world experience on the courage needed to get honest with yourself, ask for help, and for change. As a man, especially. Bryan Blackmon is with us. Bryan, good to see you again, brother. How are you, man?
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure's mine, man. You've been on one of our shows previously. Your story is amazing. I want to get into some of that here, but this is the Men's Roundtable Series podcast. You guys that don't know this, we have a Roundtable Series podcast every Thursday night, 7 p.m., with men from across the country talking about issues that are germane to men. It's our safe space to talk about men's issues. This show is a one-on-one interview version of that. So good to have you here, brother. Now, from the outside, many folks may never know that you've been struggling. They can't probably see it from externally. What was happening internally during the years you're trying to maintain the appearance that everything was okay?
And, you know, everything on the outside, like you were saying, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, really, because you could tell by looking at me that I was struggling in a sense with either some alcoholism or chemical dependency because I just didn't look healthy. But I also had this dream of moving to California. And so there were smiles on my face. There was this excitement, this joy inside that I had accomplished something that I'd wanted to do since I was so young. But internally, man, it was like I had fulfilled this part of this dream. But man, when I moved to California, things just got so out of control as far as my addiction and my alcoholism. You know, I just wanted to live the LA experience and the rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle. And I was doing that, but man, I was really struggling on the inside. Bad. And it didn't look healthy. Looking back on it now, somebody looking at me, they could probably tell. But like I said, on the inside, man, I was just so happy to be here. But like I said, internally, man, I was really in a sad, unhealthy, confused, dependent state of mind and weary and tired. But like I said, the excitement of being here was kind of carrying me through.
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
Yeah.
We've gotten into some of this before in our previous conversations, and it goes so deep. We talked about self-reliance and how that eventually turns into a prison, man, that many men live in, man. Why do you think men struggle so much with admitting they need help, especially when it comes to the more troubling kind of situation that you were going through? Not just help with trying to change a tire or help with working on a project, but the kind of help that, you know, has life and death consequences attached to it. Why do you think men have a problem doing that?
Well, I think it's just that stigma of the world viewing men. You know, we're supposed to be these strong, providing, always okay and able to figure things out. And that's just not always the case, man. I struggle as a man. You know, of course I want to be this person that people can rely on and depend on all the time, whether that be just listening or helping. But you know, there's times where men we struggle with that pressure of always being the provider, I think, and it, you know, keeping our feelings masked and pushed down. You know, we're not supposed to cry, show emotions. I think that, you know, has always just been, and I watched my dad do it. I watched my dad, you know, he cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend. And my dad always shoved himself and pushed himself into work. And I watched him from the outside, like just shove a lot of emotions down. And it's crazy to look at him today. I just saw him in Texas last month, and you can just see in this man this regret and just stuffed feelings down inside him, and it's aged him. And I always looked at that and said I never wanted to be like that. So I've learned how to let my tears flow, or my my sadness or my uncomfortable internal struggle show, because it's just who I am, and that authenticity has become a huge part of who I am. I wear my sleeves on my shoulders, but there's been many times where I learned to just stuff it down, and then next thing I know, I'm just exploding, and that's not
Yeah.
healthy. I think a lot of men do that. We stuff down those emotions and those feelings because we're men and roar, and I'm so
Yeah.
tough. But it helps to let all that stuff out. It feels like you can release it, and if people are willing to listen and understand that, it can make a huge difference in the next step in your journey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. There's a I don't have an actual number, but there's a great number of men that we hear from because of the round table on Thursday nights, and because of this show, the Spotlight. We hear from them a lot, even people who are on our panels and stuff. And there is definitely a remnant of men who kind of get what you've been discovering, that we can be, not just physical and spiritual beings, we can be emotional beings as well, and be in tune with that. And it's okay. We can have an emotional intelligence. It doesn't mean that we're soft and wimpy and unwilling to take responsibility in the area. So I just want to say, just to commend you, brother, that you can be able to come and say that, that you've been through these things and you are still in touch with who you are as a man, and not, catering to the narratives and the playbooks that the outside forces and outside world wants us to kind of do. So I just want to commend you for that, man. You've been in a place where I want your perspective on this. I want to know what you were feeling in the moments when you were without a home and living out of your car. A lot of folks that we talk to through our men's coaching and content, etc., a lot of them haven't experienced that. The ones that have are usually vets that came back over and kind of got lost, had some issues that I would identify or call an identity crisis. And they were in places like you were, but the majority of the men that we talk to haven't experienced that. What was going through your mind? What were you feeling? What were the regular daily fears of living out of your car and not having a home? What was that like?
Yeah, I do want to say one thing on the subject that we were just talking about. I can go downstairs and help my 89-year-old lady carry in a brand new couch that probably should have taken a dolly and another guy, and pick it up by myself and carry it inside and help set it up, and then come to my room and shed tears over somebody that had just betrayed me out of nowhere. That's okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I can be that guy to help do that, and then also, let those emotions out. And as far as the homeless and having that identity, man, that was a real struggle. When I was living in Texas, I'd been kicked out of my parents' house so many times, for the drugs and the alcohol and just the partying and the wild lifestyle. But when I got to California, I was sleeping in my car and sleeping in a tent in Venice on the library lawn. Man, I had no identity. I lost myself in such a dark place, in a fight or flight mode, that I didn't feel like a man. There were so many times where I was literally in tears, wanting to go back to Texas. But then at the same time, it was like, I can't take this anymore. I can't do this. I'm getting beat up way too bad. And I didn't want to show up as a man, in a sense, with my tail between my legs. I'm going to make this work. That's when I was able to start listening for the first time to the intuitive part of me and the voices that were speaking to me. And I kind of started hearing "Don't give up just yet," and that helped push me through it. But man, I was really struggling with my identity. Everything about it was so depleting mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally. And at that time, like, I had no choice but to let the tears flow, to let the silent screams um,
Mm.
come out. It was hard, especially, when you're wishing you had a girlfriend or somebody you could confide in, and it's not like you could be in a bar or walking down the streets of North or South Venice Boulevard to meet some girl and be like, "You want to come back to my tent, sweetheart?" I mean, so it's like I had nothing to offer, and that's a scary, scary, crappy place to be, and I don't know, man. It just was rough.
With you, man. I'm picking up what you're putting down, man. I really do understand where you're coming from with this, especially with the silent scream part. I'd love for you to kind of just expound on that a little bit before we move on with the convo that we have left, because the silent scream is something that we talk about from time to time on the round table. But I want to hear your perspective on what they actually is. There's probably somebody who's watching this who probably, male and female, perhaps have no idea what you mean by silent scream. Break it down for us.
I was in fight or flight mode my whole life, right? Because of the amount of alcohol and methamphetamines and pills that I was taking, and even through those dark times, when I was talking about identity a minute ago, when you don't know who you are, and oftentimes we hit these speed bumps or these things that hit us in life, right? And that resilience of learning how to bounce back from it, I felt like I I couldn't let out these screams, and I had no one to talk to. My family's concerned about me. They knew what I was going through. I didn't have any friends out here. All I wanted to do was survive, and that created such a hardened. It created a hardened heart, right? There was this fine line of wanting to give up
Mm.
and continue, and I didn't know which one to choose. Then you add the fight or flight on it, and then you add the alcohol and the drugs just to maintain. And
Yeah.
maintaining is
Yeah.
difficult, man. And what I was going through was I just, and I did it several times, just crying by myself in a tent, just asking God, what should I do? Like, I can't do this anymore. Do I need to go home? And I just kept hearing, "Don't give up yet. Don't go home yet." But man, I would grab my pillow and just have tears in my eyes, just rolling down my face, man. And not having anybody created this hardened heart that I wasn't used to, because I'm an emotional type person. Like, when I get super excited and I love hard, and I get really excited over things, and joy just overflows. And even during my drugs and alcohol, I've always enjoyed life. But man, when you get a hardened heart and you don't have anybody to talk to and let it out, um, physically, it just beat me up so bad.
Yeah.
I had no energy. I had no, like I said, it was just a daily struggle I didn't know who I was. I couldn't even figure out who I was. It was hard to figure out even the next move. And that's just debilitating, and
Yeah.
it's okay. It's okay. You can learn from these things. And I learned from it. I'm very grateful of those struggles. You find growth in struggles, whether you can see it in that time or not. You'll look back one day, it could be a month later, it could be 5 years later, and you can look at it and go, man, that's why I had to go through that to enjoy what I'm going through today.
Definitely.
You know?
That's heaviness, man. And in our circles, we lean on joy for strength, man. So I totally get that. If you can highlight for us, Bryan, kind of describe the man that you believe you're becoming. What's the picture? How would you describe that man if you could see the full picture of that man? What's that man look like?
A humbled, grateful, joyful, peaceful, protecting my energy, learning, self-sufficient, just grateful human being, man. I love helping other people. I love sharing my story. I love letting people know that your growth can be messy. That's okay. You know, I wake up grateful. It's not always easy to wake up and when your eyes finally open and you're like, oh my God, I have another day. Or, oh man, you start checking your text messages or your emails or scrolling and that starts to control your day and how you move about. And I've learned to just wake up and be grateful and stay off of everything for the first 30 to 45 minutes of my day. And so that's helped me become a very peaceful and self-guided individual that I'm extremely proud of today. And like I said, when you can brush your teeth and look in the mirror at yourself and go, all right, buddy, I'm liking what I'm
looking good, man.
I'm liking what I'm seeing.
I love it, man.
That is that's something to be proud of, even during the struggles. If you can start looking at yourself and being proud of who you are, even if it's just 1% more, man, that's a huge gain. And you're doing something more than you might be giving yourself credit for.
That's good, sir. Just a couple more questions and then we'll close the broadcast out for today, man. So you created the crowd framework, clear and clean, resilient, adaptability, and belief. How can the men that are watching and listening to this broadcast live or on the replay use these principles when life gets overwhelming for them? How can they use these?
Yeah. So I didn't realize that I'd been training for getting clean. And that doesn't, for me, it was, yes, getting clean from the drugs and alcohol, but there was another, there was a deeper step and a deeper meaning to just getting clean from the drugs and alcohol. It was my mind, body, and spirit. Letting go of the chaos, pulling one weed at a time from the lies that I'd been telling myself for so long about who I thought I was and what I thought purpose was at the time. So I had to get clean from not only the drugs and alcohol, but clean my mind, body, and spirit out. And I started learning about crabs and realized that they're resilient and they're adaptive. So without really understanding my path and the process of everything that was happening to me, the drugs, the alcohol, the homelessness, the sober living homes, the rehabs, the jails, the prison, all of these things were teaching me that you can bounce back when life hits you, but how are you going to adapt to it once you stand up? And sometimes just standing up is the first step. It is the first step, and just getting back up. That's okay. You don't have to make these huge, giant moves to see this progress. I use this analogy all the time. It's that 1% adjustment in your day, that compound interest, right? It just keeps adding up over time, and learning how to control your sail in the middle of the storm and making that 1% adjustment in the direction you're headed. And then believing in yourself and believing in the purpose, believing that you're worth it, right? Landed as the foundation for all that to be stacked on top of. And so when I started thinking about the rules of AA, the 12 steps, or going into rehab, or, being on probation and having all these rules. And if you don't do it our way, you're going to fail and you're going to be back. And I can almost look at you and say, told you so. That never set well with me. So, excuse me, I figured out how to create peace and joy and gratitude through daily disciplines. And if you, again, I'm going to go back to it, but if you can just adjust your beliefs about yourself and how resilient you really are, and that you can adapt to life situations, and then start cleaning the chaos out of your brain, you'll look back on yourself 6 weeks later, a month later, 3 months later, 6 months later, and look at your reflection in the mirror, and you will start looking at that person going, I'm liking what I'm seeing. And what that does is that just creates a momentum, right? You start creating that momentum, and you start realizing that you're much stronger than you could have ever thought. And sometimes tears are involved with that, and that's okay. Sometimes, sadness and tears and confusion are okay when you're growing. Sometimes you have to break that shell and create a bigger shell for you to grow into. And that's what crabs do. And so, yeah, man, it's just part of the process, trusting yourself.
Oh, sure. All right. So the man that you were before your transformation, sitting across from you today, he's dealing with a lot. He got a lot on his shoulders, so his attention span might not be long whatsoever. You got a chance to sit across from him. You know how much time you got to talk to him before he drifts off into his issues and his problems. What would you say to him?
It's okay. Don't stop. Do not quit. Do not give up. Do not stop. Everybody has a dream. You can picture the final outcome of that dream. You believe in God, Jesus, love, source, creator, whatever it is, a higher power. You can see the ending, but you're not going to be revealed the path, because if you were to be revealed the path, you would probably give up on your dream, because there's going to be times where you're going to look at it and go, I can't do that. There's no way. No way. Yeah, you can. Keep going, because if you give up, you'll never get to taste what is going to happen in the future. And so you're worth it. You're worth going through this struggle to get to the other side.
Bryan, thank you so much for showing what courage and accountability and what transformation looks like, man. You are definitely a blessing to a lot of people, and your story's been on the move in the circle that we went in together, and it's definitely great, creating a lot of hope and encouragement, man. So thank you for continuing to do what you do, brother. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me, man. I really, really appreciate it.
The pleasure's mine, sir. If this episode and Bryan's story resonates with you in any way, don't let the conversation stop here. Continue to follow his journey. The website is in the comments section, also in the show notes, crabcrewlife.com. crabcrewlife.com. Of course, keep following They Call Me Mr. U in the Men's Roundtable Series Spotlight for more conversations like this one designed to challenge, encourage, and inspire your growth. That's Bryan Blackmon. I'm Mr. U. Have a great day. Thanks.
Men's Roundtable Series, step inside. Real men, real faith, where the truths collide. Voices at the table where the stories get shared. Welcome to the Men's Roundtable, pull up a chair.